I'm here today at Hedingham Castle, and this absolutely magnificent 900-year-old Norman keep still survives. It stands in 160 acres of landscape gardens and woodland, and it's also home to the Lindsay family, so I cannot wait to find out more about its history. Jason and Demetra Lindsay will be giving you a tour of the historic 900-year-old keep, which dominates the surrounding East Anglian landscape.
So this is where you get the view.
And I'll get some surprises along the way.
No.
What?
So that's...
Oh my gosh. When I married into the British Aristocracy, it was the start of a wonderfully exciting journey. But it was also a little daunting. I became a Viscountess, and for an American girl from a small town outside Chicago, that was quite a shock.
I live with my husband Luke, heir to the Earl of Sandwich, and our family at Mapperton House in Dorset.
Living in a place like this is a joy, but also a challenge. And every day we're aware that we're preserving a very special part of Britain's heritage. Mapperton has opened up an extraordinary new world for me, and I can't wait to share it with you all.
So if you love castles and manors and stately homes as much as I do, please join this American Viscountess as I journey into the British countryside in search of some of Britain's finest historic houses.
Hello. Hello. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me. So nice to see you.
Great.
It's warm, it's sunny, it's blue, and the wisteria.
Thank you for bringing the weather. The wisteria is amazing.
We told it to wait till you got here.
Okay, thank you so much. I really
bloom.
appreciate
Did you breathe in
I did.
the smell?
I can't say I do all the cutting. Come on in. Come on in.
To the chaos of the kitchen.
I love the kitchen in historic houses because it is kind of the most lived-in room, isn't it?
It is the center of the hub, yeah.
Look at pictures everywhere, drawings. Oh, yes, please. But can I just say, walking up, it's like two distinct periods of history. This house, which I'd love to know more about, with the lovely wisteria, and then this enormous Norman keep.
It's extraordinary because we got the 12th century castle, the remains of an enormous fortification. And then in about 1710, someone else bought it, demolished all the ruins around the keep, and built this house.
Right.
And this is dated 1719, so this is early Georgian Queen Anne, basically.
It's so incredible that the history is 900 years old, although we know that there were settlements here before that.
Right.
So we have the Saxons. The Saxon Thane Ulwine was booted out by the Normans when they came. And so it just goes back and back and back, and you can really feel that atmosphere.
So the keep obviously still survives.
It's the best preserved keep in Western Europe.
You guys, it's so amazing here filming at Hedingham Castle. And castles like Hedingham have really stood the test of time. They've weathered storms, battles, and like centuries of change. And I often think about how in our own lives, we also face challenges and uncertainties. And we may not be defending castle walls, but we all have our own battles, whether it's dealing with stress, feeling overwhelmed, or just trying to find our own way. And being here, I'm reminded of the importance of having those strong foundations, both in history and in our personal lives. And for me, therapy has been one of those foundations. It's given me this space to really understand my thoughts and my feelings, and also to build resilience and to navigate those ups and downs in life. And therapy isn't just for when things are like falling apart. It's about building something strong that can endure whatever comes your way. And just like these incredible castle walls, that's why I want to share BetterHelp, the paid partner of this video with you today. BetterHelp is an online platform that makes starting therapy straightforward. You fill out a simple questionnaire, and usually within a couple of days, you're matched with a credentialed therapist. And if the match doesn't feel quite right, that's okay. You can easily switch therapists until you find someone who you truly connect with. BetterHelp also offers a journal feature, which I love, for reflecting on your thoughts, and group sessions on different topics to really help you feel supported. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a trusted platform that can help you build these strong foundations you need in your life. So if you're considering therapy, click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/American Viscountess to get 10% off your first month. Remember that taking care of your mental health is a sign of strength, and it's about building resilience, just like these historic walls that have stood for centuries. Thank you all so much for joining me today at Hedingham Castle, and I hope this message helps you if you're considering taking that next step in your mental health journey.
It was built as a fortress, obviously, but
Right.
in those days they built them to show off as well, so they're real status symbols.
Right.
So,
So that survived, and then, but around it, you said it was pulled down, or it was...
Well, it lasted 500 years,
Right.
basically. So by the sort of 17th century, the family had sort of moved away a bit, and people were robbing the stone, because there's no stone in Essex. All that stone had to come nearly 70 miles. So it was like covering it in gold. It was like having a sort of pyramid, but covered in gold.
Right. And so they just wanted to take it, so they just thought, we're going to pull it down, and we're going to build something here in 1719.
Yeah, so in that period, it did really collapse. There was a massive Tudor palace actually built in the 1490s. So we have wonderful sort of maps and plans of all the sort of buildings then. And that was for Henry VII's visit
Okay.
after Battle of Bosworth. So that was incredible, a bit like Hampton Court.
Right.
And then
style.
that didn't last very long. And then Queen Elizabeth came here in the 1560s. Henry VII was here for a week in the 1490s. Henry VIII came here.
Okay, so there's a lot of royal connections here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we had a Queen Matilda died here in 1152. We're not quite sure which room, but we like to think it was somewhere in the keep, but it was probably in one of the royal chambers around the building.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And how many rooms does the keep have? Because it's just enormous.
It is enormous, but it's like a TARDIS, so it's bigger on the inside. But we must come and
Okay,
we must show you.
yeah. I'd love to.
Do you know, maybe we should have our coffee. We should take it over.
Yeah,
Do you
fantastic.
think?
Yeah.
Let's do that.
We walk and
Brilliant.
talk.
We can walk and talk.
Hedingham Castle was built around 1140 by Jason's ancestor, Aubrey de Vere, Lord Great Chamberlain of England, and has witnessed the turbulence of medieval English history.
This bridge we're going over, I always question about bridges because I think that they've been here for centuries.
Well,
Am I right?
this was a drawbridge originally with the Norman castle, but this was replaced in the 1490s to celebrate
Okay.
Henry VII's visit, because he came here for a week after
he
the Battle
came
of
through
Bosworth
this.
and after Richard III had been defeated, and he built this amazing Tudor castle all around here, giving
Right.
There would
everything
have
back.
been brick walls all the way around the outside of the Bailey.
And it would have been a magnificent Tudor palace like Hampton Court. You have to imagine all this full of buildings. It was a huge complex of buildings within a wall.
In a wall, yes. Wow, this is just incredible to walk here and know that what king was here, what queen?
So we've had Queen Matilda, we've had Henry VII, Henry VIII, Elizabeth I.
My
We've
God.
also had Queen Emma of Hawaii.
Yeah, that's quite a good
Did
idea.
you? There was a queen of Hawaii
Yes.
before it became a part of the United States?
In about
or-
1860, I think.
Oh
she
yeah, that
came.
would be, yeah. Gosh. So, wow. So
So
you've,
this is the Bailey where we now do jousting, but this would have had a banqueting hall on it there.
right.
And the kitchen's over there, and this was a sort of courtyard in one point, and the chapel was
Beautiful
there.
Norman chapel over there. There's a well somewhere over there. Massive walls all the way around it. And huge industry. Imagine all the people here.
Yeah.
You know, the armourer, the medical person.
And we're standing on
Right.
top of the dungeon.
Oh.
So the dungeon was down there.
Oh my-
And this was the guards' room.
Oh my gosh.
And
so
then
this-
that is the amazing doorway. which is an incredible bit of Norman sculpture. They call that decoration sculpture, but it's
that chevron
incredibly
moulding.
beautiful.
It's chevron molding, because that's kind of how you know it's Norman, is that right?
Yes.
So you had the best stonemasons come over from France because the De Veres were Norman, very well-known Normans. They came over with William the Conqueror.
Right.
And he actually married Beatrice, his half-sister.
He married William the Conqueror's half-sister.
Beatrice, yeah.
Okay.
And they were then entitled by Empress Matilda in the 1140s, wasn't it? That he became the first Earl of Oxford. And it was the longest lasting medieval title. There were 20 Earls of Oxford.
Oh
And
my goodness.
normally you died, you got beheaded because you backed the wrong king, you died of the plague, or you died in battle. So for them to last 550 years, I
They
think
were
it was.
quite slippery. They did swap
Yeah,
sides.
they were quite.
They did. Yeah.
You know, but they had to be
to
quite
save their
wily.
heads.
Yes.
And a few of them did get beheaded and cut to pieces, and we found in the Tower of London, in that chapel, they're buried under anyone who was beheaded for treason was
Any
then
aristocrat that was
the slab was
Right.
lifted. They sprinkled in lime or something, and then the slab was reclosed.
No.
And Queen Victoria was so horrified, she had the slab lifted. It's in the church in the corner of the Tower of London, and she said, "I want them all exhumed. I want to try and identify as many of them as possible." And they worked out 35 of them, and the other 40 weren't identified. There's now a plaque on the wall of each one they identified,
Oh my goodness.
and they didn't find the Earl of
the
Oxford.
saddest place.
Oh,
It has
were-
the most
was one of your
incredible atmosphere.
forebears?
Yeah, well, the 12th Earl of Oxford and his oldest son were executed for treason, and the son was executed 4 days before his father, so that the father would know that his son and heir had been brutally, and I mean brutally, they cut you up, you bled very slowly to death, they eventually chopped your head off, put it on Traitor's Gate, and the body was shoved in this hole in the chapel. I mean, it's the most awful bit of English history.
Yeah, it really is.
And when you're standing there, you're thinking, my goodness, where is the body? And you're they didn't find the Earl of Oxford. And maybe they brought the headless body down here. Maybe they repatriated it with his head. But brutal times, Wars of the Roses, you know.
War of the Roses, exactly.
Absolutely horrific.
Let's go inside.
All right, let's go in, yes.
I want to see your reaction to the next bit.
It's very easy because the portcullis isn't here anymore. Normally it would have been, what's the password? And then the portcullis would have been wound up through that groove.
Right. Oh.
But we won't drop it today.
Okay, don't drop it.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, okay, yes.
It's good to have
There
the
we go.
slot, isn't it?
There we go.
Headingham was built as a defensive castle. And where better to get a sense of the true medieval function of the building and the landscape it commanded than up on the roof.
First of all, how many steps?
We think there are 100 steps.
Yeah.
100?
Very good at keeping you fit if you're
That's
restoring the roof.
fantastic.
And they're quite steep steps, so you will be out of breath within about 5 seconds.
And isn't it kind of going in a different
Yes,
direction?
so this is clockwise, and
Then
most
I
people
would've-
are right-handed.
Yes.
And the reason for that, if you were defending and I was attacking, you're going to hit the central post with your sword. And the
Whereas
person
I have got all that space to
see.
cut you down. So this is where
Oh
you
my
get
goodness.
the view.
And it's okay to walk on the lead roof?
Yes, dear.
Yeah.
You've got flat shoes. That's
Yep.
all
Yeah,
good.
no high heels.
Yes, no,
Yeah.
absolutely not. I'd go right through, or the heel would. This is incredible. So obviously this was built to, I mean, it was a great spot to defend
Can't you
all
see
the
everything?
invaders. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And,
Well, they had
and
spies. They did have spies everywhere.
they did, okay.
So I think by the time you didn't sort of go with you didn't have binoculars, but go,
Right.
oh my goodness, the French are coming.
Yes.
You know, I
Well, you
think
could generally see the fires,
you
couldn't
used to
you?
have fires and you
Yes,
had spies.
and you could spy.
And you
yes.
were kind of ready for them. But this did have a perimeter wall around it with 2 more towers. So you can see
Right.
where the wall would have gone to.
Okay,
And probably sentries, probably a staircase in there, so even higher for them.
Okay.
And they had 4 of these towers. We've only got 2
right.
now. And it's still all this Barnack stone from next to Burley House, you may know of.
Yeah, of course, Burley.
So there's a quarry there that they know the stone came from.
Okay, so what work have you had done here? Because obviously this lead roof, what was here before?
So there was a lead roof here, but we've redone it in 1985-ish.
Okay.
Isn't it?
When you took over, when did you start taking over custodianship, or however we want to call it, as
moved here
HH
in,
members?
2004.
moved
Yeah.
2004.
So we're
Yes.
20-year anniversary. Pretty
Yes.
well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and with actually, I was pregnant with number one, so we then had 3 children because we had twins in 2 years. So we moved and we didn't do much, did we, at the beginning? And then, of course, when you think you're going to do something to a Scheduled Ancient Monument, which this is, you have to ask Historic England for every drawing pin you think you're going to put in the
Yes.
You
building.
have to get the Secretary of
So-
State. You have to
to-
get permission from him or
with
her.
a Scheduled Ancient Monument consent.
It's the highest
So-
listing in the land. You know,
Yes.
it's above grade 1.
Oh my, so what's it called?
It's a Scheduled Ancient Monument.
Okay, I'm going to say it
Yes.
the American way. Scheduled ancient
No,
monument.
scheduled.
Scheduled.
Yeah. Schedule.
But when we got here, the electrics were completely finished, and there was no loos. You know, no one had sort of
Heating.
modernised it.
There was
Yes.
nothing really hidden,
Yeah.
so you couldn't make
So
it commercially
took
viable.
Us, it took us
when you
about
arrived.
7 years to do the run up to the big project that we eventually finished in 2015.
Oh my gosh.
Because we had to get, they had to know what we wanted to do. They had to believe in our vision. They had to get
All
on
the
board,
permissions.
all
Yeah.
the permissions. Then subsequently, and then and you
Architectural
can't do
reports,
them
we had
all.
to get
Yes.
architectural specialists. We wanted to take out a wall in the basement.
So, did you feel, I mean, I'm looking around here and you've got this sort of community. You can see the community from everywhere. Were they very supportive of what
Really
you wanted to
supportive.
do?
Loving, because this building is open to the public. And
Right.
if it had to be sold, someone would buy it as a private house or a hotel.
Right, right.
And there would
yeah.
be no,
And they'd never get back in.
there'd be no events. There would be no public access.
Right.
no
They would,
church
you know,
cocktail parties.
No, and it wouldn't have
all of
been
that.
owned by the family that's been here since.
Yeah,
Well,
since
10
1067 really.
And all the
So-
children who go to school in the village, they all come up here on their school trips because
See?
it's a little walk.
And they'll dress
And
up
it's
in
such
little
fun.
in the tabards, and
Yeah.
and we have medieval days.
So
We're
sweet.
trying to create a sustainable business. In the late 90s, the government changed the rules so that you could have weddings
Yeah, I
in a
remember.
building, not in a registry office.
Right.
And that was a kind of renaissance moment for all houses within historic houses, the association, because suddenly we could generate significant revenue. People were coming, having a lovely time. We were getting money for the restoration. It was a fantastic
Yeah.
win-win.
It's wonderful, though, that you have been able to create not just sort of a wonderful, I guess, event space, weddings, all of that, but also to keep it part of the community. As you mentioned, school children coming over.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's,
It's so special
hundreds
because
of
when you
schools
when you
having-
live somewhere
yeah.
like this, you have to share it.
yeah. Can I get a tour of the rest of the
Yes.
Yeah,
keep?
please
That
do.
would be,
Absolutely.
how many rooms in total
Well,
are
there are 4 floors.
Wow.
Yeah.
And there's lots of little alcoves, but they
Yes.
think this building was probably used for parties, royal banquets.
Right.
There's some theory that people stayed in them, but I think people stayed out in smaller domestic buildings that could be heated, because there are only one huge fireplace on each floor.
Okay.
It's the original open plan floor plan. You know,
Right.
Corbusier thought he was onto something, whereas we know that it started here.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
And
That's
if
your
you
claim to fame.
wanted to impress people, you invited them here, they came up. If you're higher in the building you got, the higher status you were.
Okay.
So normally you were downstairs being dealt with by the constable, but come up to the banqueting floor with the minstrels gallery, that meant you were pretty up there to see the Earl.
Right.
And he was seated by the fireplace that you'll see, and then he has a secret man hiding as security
We'll
guard.
show you that
Okay,
when we get
okay,
there.
all right, should we
go?
Let's go back in. Yeah.
This is an astonishing building. It stands over 110 feet high, and the walls are over 12 feet thick at their base. Once you're inside, you do feel safe from any attack outside. Well, I hope so, as I'm staying the night.
So we're now going into the dormitory floor as we descend the building. This is the room that we use as our museum at the moment.
Okay, so it's like an exhibition space.
Yes,
yeah?
exactly. And then we have our pièce de résistance, and something that you're going to become very familiar with.
Really?
Because this is where you're going to sleep this evening.
Oh my goodness.
So it's quite good fun, isn't it?
Oh my goodness.
So actually,
This-
the
okay,
best
give me the
bit is
history.
you're going to have the whole keep to yourself tonight.
Yeah.
And people can come and stay here as well, and they have the whole keep themselves. The only place you can do it. You can have a Norman keep.
So I can walk up and down.
Yes.
I can walk all around tonight.
Yeah, and there are no ghosts.
Well, that was going to be my question. There's no. You're telling me that.
No, and the good thing is, because of course,
no-
because a Norman building, you can't have curtains on the windows because that wouldn't be correct. So if you do feel a little bit sort of needing a bit more coziness, of course, it's very authentic and absolutely the right thing to do is to close the curtains around you, and then you're in this gorgeous, snug bed inside, which is really cozy and really fun. The other thing you might want to do while you're here, because we don't want to keep you unamused, is that you might want to have a bath.
No. What?
So that's,
Oh my gosh.
that's your bath.
You're kidding me.
And of course, if you had your glass of champagne or whatever, maybe some De Vere finest gin, you can just have it there. And then we've got the most brilliant bit, something that Jay's made, because we've made all this ourselves, needless to say, because that's what we do.
This is unbelievable.
Just turn around and just glance over there,
Okay.
and the far back is going to turn into the fireplace. And the YouTube have done the hard bit there, obviously.
Oh my gosh.
And then you might want to have a cup of coffee in the morning. So you have to come and have your cup of coffee and
This
your...
is so clever. This is unbelievable. Okay.
But you know what is the best bit about it is that, okay, it's fun and not fair.
It's so
but
fun.
Historic England let us do this. They were amazing, and they thought, you know what, Norman keeps have got to earn their keep.
Yes.
And so doing something like this gives people an experience, and then they really understand what it feels like.
And you both did this. So the thought process was, walk me through it, because of course we're historic house homeowners. We're always trying to think, right, we've got to prepare for the roof or the leaks or whatever the next big project is. You're always thinking, project, how can I bring in more income to help support these projects in order to preserve this keep?
Well, our real moment was when we put heating in using the biomass boiler, because there were grants to do that in 2015.
Yes.
So a little scary, we jumped on it. We had a huge amount of digging through all the earthworks, archaeologists watching, got heating in here for the first time in 900 years. And we didn't know how it was going to react, the building, because, it's lime mortar. You have to be really careful with all the flints and everything. Anyway, it seemed to be fine.
Drying out.
Drying out the building.
Because it's so warm and cozy in here.
Well, it does, because of the insulation now, and it's never been insulated, because this was all rebuilt out of the fire in 1924. So it's all pretty sturdy, so you can actually jump. You wouldn't normally do that in a Norman building, but and we were allowed to do very delicate restoration to all the alcoves and things. And then they went to a props company, and we got amazing props and things. A lot of these were in the TV thing, Merlin.
Okay, yes.
And Knight's Tale, some of the chandeliers downstairs from that film.
What I absolutely love is that this was rather lovely, because we've got this incredible silk mill only 6 miles away in Sudbury, and it's called Gainsborough Silk, and they gave us practically the material for this, because we couldn't have sort of modern looking material. We went through all their rails and found the most traditional things, and it had to look like a patchwork.
Yes.
Because then it looks right, if you see what I mean.
Yes, of course.
So that was rather lovely, because that's rather a nice sort of local...
and it's local, and it's beautiful, and it works well. I'm going to be here tonight. Wow. Incredible. I'm going to send you photos tonight. Just being like, here I am having some of your gin.
in the bath.
Exactly. I might not send you a bath photo, but next room, because you're going to give me a little tour, yes?
Come down to the banqueting hall. So this is the banqueting hall, and this is the room that the architects and the historians go completely doolally over, because this is the widest Norman arch in domestic architecture in Western Europe.
Oh my goodness.
So
okay, I have a lot of questions here, but because it almost looks like it's dividing the two rooms, Was it dividing it at one point or no?
We're
At one
not
point, there's some little
sure.
damages, so it may have been divided at one point, but
Right.
we don't think it was permanently
Okay.
divided. But this being the banqueting hall, it's all about status, getting this high
Yes.
up in the building. You had this incredibly dramatic, it was all about sense of theatre coming up there. The Earl of Oxford would have
And
been
the
sitting.
Earl would have sat here next
No.
to the fire. So he would have been here.
Goodness.
And then rather
You can be his
amazingly,
countess. Why
Okay,
don't you
I
be
can
his
do
that.
countess? Yeah. And you can be the Earl.
I'll be the Earl.
Okay, fantastic.
And can you be the henchman, do you
Okay.
think? Thanks very much. Would that be okay, sir?
That is
Yes.
perfect.
So the reason for having the steps coming up and at that additional bit of steps as you come in the room was so that you were out of breath when you arrived at the Earl. So it was all about slightly wrong footing you. So that you were subservient to him because he would be sitting there totally relaxed and he'd be going, you know, like this. And so you would be allowed to approach to sort of there, have your audience. And if you got a little bit uppity, unbeknown to him, because he literally can't see, in that alcove, the reason that alcove is there is that the henchman would be sitting in that alcove. And if there was a problem going to happen,
Can I come out now?
Jason would come out and get us.
You can come out now.
So that's what it was for.
Yes.
Apparently.
Yes, isn't that incredible? So all these bits of architecture, and actually with the decoration, you know where you are and which door to go through and all the rest of it, because the door to go through is more decorated than the other door, which is the sort of exit door.
But I feel in here, the banqueting hall, there's so many, you've got the henchmen over there, but there's so many entrances and exits or sort of cubby holes or whatever, you know, little niches there. Is that what they are? Do they lead
Funnily
to
enough,
different
they are
rooms?
actually just niches.
Well,
so
sort
they
of.
would
I
have
mean,
had
that's-
different reasons.
There's a belief that was
Yeah.
the offertory chapel. So he had a little chapel, private chapel in that one.
Right.
He's got the long drop, the garderobe, which is the old-fashioned version of a loo,
Yes.
which was a passage that dropped nearly 70 foot down to the ground, where it was dug out and then taken back up to the first floor and then spread on the fields by a man called the gong fermeur. Delightful job.
Brilliant.
And where everything sat for quite a long period was next to the food and the rats. So the level of hygiene in here was a shocker. And you can imagine dogs, you've got hay, you've got, you know, people chucking bones over their shoulders, a classic kind of really sort of charged men had been at battle, they'd been on a crusade. They were hardcore. Imagine the smell. These were hardcore men. They never washed. You know, they were.
Yes.
And actually, the fireplaces, which would have been roaring, obviously, there is no chimney. They hadn't invented chimneys yet, although, of course, in Roman times they had invented chimneys. But what they had got wrong here was that the chimney goes out horizontally just above where we can see.
Yes.
And so they didn't draw. So in fact, the whole room would have been slightly filled with smoke. But they
right.
think that that was quite a good thing because it would have just gently
Killed the lice.
killed the bugs.
A bit.
But the stone carvings everywhere.
Well,
All-
this is fun. So we talk about proportion and balance. You know, this was one stonemason who was very good at this particular pattern. And this
Right.
is from 1100. That one over there is by another stonemason. They
Didn't get it.
They didn't replicate this. You would have thought for the main fireplace in the castle, they would have perfect
Right,
balance.
yes.
But no, this was, you know, Stephen of Sudbury. He was very good at this shape.
And this is Billy from Braintree.
Billy from Braintree, you know, and they just kind of hacked away and no one minded.
Unbelievable.
And it's rather amazing because this room was built for royalty, essentially coming to massive state banquets, because this was the pinnacle. This family, this was the sort of top level sort of palace, one
Right.
of them. So the king and all his court would come here with a huge retinue. You would have a massive banquet up here. You have to think of this up there with the Tower of London. Absolutely, there's a creme de la creme of society. It would come up those stairs in the early 12th century. But imagine it with the minstrels playing down. Huge trestle tables, lots of people, dogs, the noise
Yeah.
and the music. It was, you know, amazing place for entertaining.
Yeah. And perfect for weddings and perfect for events. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's so fantastic, because it's replicating sort of what happened, you know, hundreds of
Yeah.
years ago.
And
Fun,
we're
party.
so lucky that this didn't collapse in the fire. That was, you know, it was extraordinary that it survived. Yeah, it was an incredibly intense fire, nearly 100 years ago.
Right. And how much of the keep was destroyed?
All the floors, all the roof, a lot of the armour that was here, storage from the family collection, and the house was in here for safekeeping because it was the First World War, 1914 to 1918.
Essentially, it became a shell.
Yeah.
So everything just burnt inside, but because they didn't put any water on the structure, it didn't
survived.
Yeah.
Right. For me, I wouldn't have even known that there had been a fire. That's what's quite impressive, because how you've restored it is fantastic. I mean, these floors.
Well, it was amazing. So 1918 was the fire. They were spotting for Zeppelins with the new terror. Yeah.
Right, yes.
Aerial bombardment of London. They were sending them over from Germany and throwing missiles out of the Zeppelins in London. Everyone was just utterly terrified because there'd been no aerial combat or bombs before. And so they were coming over Essex, and sometimes they'd overshoot the Thames and come up here. And so they were on the roof spotting for Zeppelins, and they knocked a little fire brazier over, keeping them warm, and it spread to the whole building. And it was like a sort of chimney. And they couldn't find horses to connect to the fire pump. Eventually they got here and it was too late, so the whole place was let to burn. And by 1924, they decided to rebuild it. The Ministry of Works, who were the sort of government, the early version of English heritage. And so we've got incredibly solid beams. Otherwise, we'd probably have 18th century beams. And if you did that, you would wobble.
Right, right.
And so it would have been a massive multi-million pound, £20 million restoration, because they tried
Just to get the infrastructure in place,
which is
had the fire not happened.
Yeah. But they realised how important a building it was then, which is the pre kind of listing.
I was about to say,
which was the 1950s.
Yeah.
And they said, no, we've got to go for it. And when the country was incredibly poor.
I was about to say, because that's what's really perked my ears, because this is before any historic houses started to really open up to the public.
Yeah.
We were instead demolishing them.
All being demolished,
pulling them down. But yet they thought, no, this is so important. We have to make sure that we preserve it and that it can be used. Yeah.
They were being blown up, I think, 1 or 2 a week, right through. And we lost 2,000 to 3,000. And it's an incredibly rare survivor.
Well, I'm so happy because I get to spend the night.
We'll see about that tomorrow.
Otherwise you'd be on the floor somewhere.
Exactly. I wouldn't mind the floor.
gun.
Okay, this is so vast. Now, we're going to come back here for supper.
We are, but we're
not on the ground floor.
No,
obviously.
we're going to show you.
2 more floors.
2 more floors to go.
Come in.
Just be careful on the way down, because they're quite steep.
Come to we're going to go to the garrison floor next.
The transformation of this 900-year-old building into a modern event space and wedding venue is breathtaking.
Wow.
So come in here. This is the garrison floor, or the armory.
Okay.
Just through those curtains is the main entrance.
Right.
So if you were a normal citizen, this is as far as you got in the keep. So you were lower status. The higher status you were, the higher you get up a castle.
Okay. So being a viscountess, I could go a little bit
You're
higher.
allowed a little bit higher.
It's quite low, but
you still have to be quite good.
You're not a baroness.
Back to this room. So yes.
Again, you have this great...
Another amazing arch.
An amazing arch as well. I mean, that's extraordinary. Just to have one on top of another,
and
right?
you could only do this because of the thickness of the walls. So later on, technology became with flying buttresses. So they got thin walls, but you could only build an arch like this because you got massive buttresses to hold them in. Otherwise, they would have pushed it all out.
Force,
and these exist to take the huge beam. You see one there.
Yes.
And then you'll see downstairs, we've had to hollow out the beam and put in a 3.5-ton steel under this floor, so that we could get rid of the supporting wall below that.
I see.
And actually what we use this room now for, which is really cool, I mean, this just shows how these buildings have to adapt. This is where, if you have a wedding completely in the keep rather than going over to the marquee and the house, this becomes a nightclub. And it's really cool. All the alcoves go different colours. And we call it Norman's the nightclub when we're being
so
silly.
cool. And there's a little bar over
and
there.
there's the bar, exactly.
Beady little eye.
What's amazing is that during COVID, because we didn't have anyone here, because everything stopped dead, Jay said, right, this is the moment to refloor this floor, because people's heels were going through the original pine floor.
Okay.
So it was really important that we did it. He's the carpenter.
So I was about to say, so you did this floor?
I'm Bob the Bad Builder, yes.
Did you?
So, but actually the joy is, I can stand on the beam
Right.
Doesn't even
And
wobble.
dance
Doesn't
to
even wobble.
AC/DC, and
So you can
everybody's,
have
you know.
100 people dancing here.
Jason, you did this floor.
I did this floor, yes.
And he's very
the
handy.
table
He made the
and
bar
What?
out of the bed heads. I do the sewing.
Well, I was
so
about
I'm-
to say,
I'm,
I was looking
yeah.
around and looking at all of these beautiful designs and these enormous curtains. But you can sew.
So
can
I-
you teach
yes.
me? Because it's actually one of the things I actually do want to learn.
incredibly zen sewing. You can really, it's very peaceful.
How long did it take you to do both of these?
Well, probably quite a long time. I mean, maybe it took me 3 days, do you think? Because, you know,
That's
once
not
you
a long
cut out all the
So you're
the
cutting.
pieces.
So okay, wait. So Dimitra, you did all of these.
Yes,
You
designed
cut-
to look like doors and
Yes.
hinges.
Those look like
Yes.
hinges. And what is amazing,
Yeah.
these are scraps from the house, and this
Yes.
is
So we
18th
keep-
century crewel work,
Yeah, lovely, cruel.
which is beautiful, but
Yeah.
rather fragile.
Yeah.
So if you get a drunk wedding guest, you know,
Yeah.
so you have to be a bit careful, but you can't be too precious.
Yeah, no, you
But
can't.
that's
And you
another
have to
beautiful
use
Another
it. They were
And
old curtains that were just moth-eaten and stuff, so I just cut round the
That
holes and
is
used the
so
bits.
brilliant.
I
And
could.
sort of here, these.
Well, you see, in these alcoves, we were allowed to put loos.
Come and have a look.
And,
Oh my
and so
gosh.
it's rather amazing.
But the
It's really fun.
plumbing.
Complicated, 100 foot
Complicated.
up. And so we've got a fake, this is our conduit, which
Yes.
is obviously
Yes, I see.
painted,
Oh, I didn't
and
even
we were
notice
allowed to
that. Very
run
clever.
all the conduits and the heating and the plumbing and the electrics.
And then I see you got a grant,
Yes.
which is great.
Amazing. They've been fantastic. Historic Houses Foundation.
Yes.
They don't have the paperwork of the government grants that you can get. You don't have to jump through the hoops. And they trust us as private owners to look after these buildings.
Let me show you one more floor.
I'm excited.
Because we've got the tapestry
my-
room to go.
So in my bedroom, I can come down here tonight too, can't
Yeah,
I?
you can use
can have a
every
little,
floor.
little have something from the bar.
Yeah. I'm going to lock it, sorry. I've heard stories. Yeah.
So this is what we call the tapestry room.
Okay.
But actually, originally, this was the storeroom. So we are now downstairs. You wouldn't have been able to get into this room from the outside, which
Okay.
you can now, but we'll show you that in a minute. So this is the room that we now use for banquets and that sort of thing for the
Okay,
weddings.
for the weddings.
Yeah.
It's too difficult to get food and drink and everything up to the banqueting
course.
floor. So we have a trailer that comes and parks outside, a catering trailer, and they can have a fantastic party for 70 or 80 people in here. And it
Brilliant.
just works brilliantly.
So what did you have to do to this room then?
Gosh, so this is a new floor. Jace has been...
Again, this was
Did this floor?
recycled from Southend Pier.
Yeah.
Pretty solid. And we dug down, and there was a massive wall holding up the beam here
Okay.
that went all the way across.
Oh,
And
right.
we were allowed to take out, you can see the sort of marks here.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
And we were allowed to take it out, and we hollowed out this beam and put in 3.5 tons of steel down the middle, bolted it together. And wow. And again, that was another grant from the
Yes.
Historic Houses Foundation.
Really?
As was
Incredibly
all
kind.
this flint
Yeah.
work
Unbelievable.
that we've done. So we've done a huge amount of restoration here because
Yes.
it was over time just dropping a flint or two a week, which it doesn't seem much in the scheme of things. But you know, you want
yeah.
it to be here another 900 years.
Exactly.
Let me show you the thickness of the walls.
Yeah, but first I'm just going to admire these. Once again, curtains, don't tell me, because these are really, did you do these?
I did. But
What?
actually,
How though? How did you?
Well, it's all lots of pieces of material that we found in the attic. So my mother-in-law was amazing at keeping everything. And so these are old curtains that have just been put
How did
together.
you decide the design? And you used a template, but that you just
Yes.
drew the template?
I
and
just
thought-
drew the template and sort of made it up as I went along.
But
really.
it's brilliant. But how? What was your inspiration? Because they're just, it's so
Well, so
beautiful.
these were from Perugia. There's an amazing medieval hall in Perugia in Italy, and so I then painted those to.
Okay,
and
so you
this
paint
is
as well.
This is the De Vere
You
shield,
are
and
unbelievable.
that's the England
Oh my God.
shield, and
Yes.
we've got the Essex shield over there, etc. So, but these
Oh
shields
my
are really
gosh.
fascinating because these are all there are 25 shields in the room,
Okay.
and they're all the earls or the barons who bullied King John into signing the Magna Carta.
Okay.
And we finished this bit of the restoration in 2015. And so we were celebrating that at the time.
Right.
Have a look
Oh my
at how
goodness.
thick the walls are.
Oh.
So this was
my goodness.
a way through that the Georgians pushed through this wall. So we can
Okay.
now go out a different way
Oh,
than
you
when
did?
we came in.
So the Georgians
Yes.
pushed through
They
here.
They wanted
Yes.
to use this for timber storage because they had to do something with it.
It's just
Right,
quite a
right.
grand garage, really.
It was
Yeah.
a folly.
Yes,
Pointless
yes.
folly otherwise. So they chiseled this by hand. No diamond.
No.
And you've got to push really hard. Yeah.
Give it a... There we go.
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah.
Rattle, rattle.
Right.
Here we are outside.
Oh my gosh.
So we're now back on the ground floor.
This is fantastic.
We'll let you out.
Yeah, thank you
Unlike
so
the old
much.
days.
No, I'm going to be back up there anyway. Just promise
There
to
we
let me
go.
out tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that was just wonderful. But it's just, you know, it is a magnificent building. It really is.
What a spectacular space for a wedding. The historic atmosphere and drama of the building is mesmerizing. And to have the option to stay too, although I'm a little nervous of being in such a vast historic building alone overnight. As we made our way back to the house, Jason was keen to show me the stunning grounds.
So,
Wow. And the sun is out. I mean, this is a slice of heaven.
well, it's extraordinary. There's a little kind of secret compartment. So we have, it's private, but we share it for the weddings. But it's extraordinary. You can have a full joust going on there, and then we can be here, and you hardly notice it.
It's unbelievable. It's so beautiful, and it looks very manageable.
We try, yeah, we don't
in-
have enough resources, so our really stretched team just kind of coat. We try and not have herbaceous borders, and it's pretty woolly and wild. A lot of lavender.
I love
Tube
it.
cream instead of box because of the box blight.
Right.
We've got cherries in there
Do you?
and hydrangeas. We put the fountain in a few years ago because this was the original turning circle.
Okay.
So you arrived here at
That's
the house.
right.
It was all about that. And now it's extraordinary that it's turned into gardens. So,
Turned to gardens.
yeah.
And when this was sort of the main entrance, were there other gardens somewhere else?
Well,
on
we're
the
not really
estate,
sure.
or-
It was never formally designed, but it's a landscape that's evolved, obviously, over the last
Yes.
1,000 years. And we know that this was created in the sort of early 1900s when they moved the drive basically from here to around there, and then this became gardens. So in sort of,
Okay.
but never massive gardens.
These wonderful gardens open out to reveal a beautiful lakeside setting.
So this was built out of the
magical.
fish ponds. To get the sand and possibly the clay for the castle, they needed sand for the lime mortar. They dug all these ponds, and this was either 3 to 5 ponds that were left
Okay.
over that were then used for fish ponds in the 12th, 13th century.
Right.
And then in the 18th century, they said, let's knock them through into this. So it's then grown into this.
This. And did they still then fish, though, in the 18th century from here?
Well, I don't know if they had it as fish food, but in the Norman times, apparently they would have had a tank on the roof of the castle. And in the siege of King John, apparently they were throwing fish down on King John's men just to wind them up. And they possibly had the fish from here put in a fish tank.
Okay.
And then they just lobbed them down just to wind them up. But it's a famous story.
Brilliant.
And so it then became picturesque. And then it's much more capability brownish, even though he was 1760s.
Okay, yes.
So this is a very early formal garden, and then it's become sort of scruffy and
It's not
sort
scruffy,
of
it's beautiful.
scruffy
This
and
is like
picturesque.
my ideal.
The gardens at Hedingham are a tapestry of different atmospheres, with the bog garden forming the magnificent backdrop for the 18th century dovecote.
This is a very sort of wet garden.
This is
and with
lovely.
Beautiful.
So who did this?
Well, this is always here, and we just try
Oh.
and dig out these ponds
I
every
think it's
year.
fantastic.
And that's the dovecote.
So that's the dovecote.
And that
That's
we
in
were helped.
fine
Well,
condition.
it was incredible. We got a grant from Historic Houses Foundation,
Right.
which was then Country House Foundation, because it was going to fall apart like a pack
Okay.
of cards. And they're quite rare because people stopped feeding pigeons or whatever was in them in the 1840s because the price of wheat so they all fell apart. No one wanted to keep them. But this, I think because it was part of the garden, the picturesque, they kept it, and we saved it just in time.
Did you? And how long did that work take to restore
They
that?
were here for a year or so,
Yeah,
I think. I
yeah.
had to repoint everything, take out all the tie pins. My father did the roof in the sort of early 90s.
Did he? It's incredible.
I mean, this is rather mad, this sort of
Yeah,
crazy
oh
bamboo.
gosh, I didn't even notice this. This is madness.
Yeah. And
Oh.
kids sort of go in. We've had to stop them
This
going
is
in because they
brilliant.
were literally kind of making too many piles. But it's quite fun when the kids are young and you're inside and you scream at them like a bear. They all kind of run off.
This is incredible.
So, this is the dovecote.
I love a good dovecote. I do. You know, everybody.
Everyone loves a good
Yeah,
dovecote.
everybody. So, do the doves still come?
No, we try and keep them out
Right.
because we've bolted them back together
Okay.
to hold them up. But the original nesting boxes, we lost an entire wall there of them.
Oh yes.
And this post was what the ladder would go on. So it would swivel around,
Yep.
and then you go up and get the eggs out.
And what was the purpose, though, originally of dovecotes? Was that
Food. So you
That's
either
what I
got
thought.
the breasts off the birds,
Right.
or I think you got the eggs.
Right.
Because there's no fridges, obviously. You might have had an ice house to keep the food
Yes.
cold during the summer. Ice was taken off the lake and put in the hole in the ground in an ice house. We've never found ours.
Right.
But basically, it was the equivalent of fresh meat. Clever system.
Our culinary tastes may have changed, but as the evening light drew in, we prepared to feast in the banqueting hall of the keep, just as the Earls of Oxford had done centuries before. Dining by candlelight in such wonderful company rounded off a fantastic day at Hedingham Castle. What an amazing building. I could really feel the centuries of rich history. And under Dimitra and Jason's guidance, this incredible castle has been transformed into a venue for the 21st century, whilst remaining true to its medieval roots. But how would it feel to spend the night?
Good night, everybody. I'm heading to my room in the 900-year-old Norman keep. And yes, I am excited and I'm not scared. So you might be wondering, like, if I'm a bit nervous. I'm a bit nervous only because I'm by myself. So, but that's just all in my head. I'll try to breathe through that, it should be fine. But also, you almost can't even think, or I at least can't think, like, wait, what? I'm staying in a 900-year-old keep, and this is where kings and queens have visited and stayed. King Henry VII, King Henry VIII, Queen Elizabeth I have all been here. And that, to me, is something it's hard for me to get my head around, because I'm not just visiting this place, this vast structure, I'm actually staying here tonight. And then I hear bits of noises. There's like a little bit of flickering of that light. Did you see that? Flickering? It's all fine. Totally fine. And this was built to defend from invaders. So I should feel very safe in here. This is here to protect me. And it will. I'm totally fine with it. Okay, I'm just gonna switch off. I'll see you guys in the morning. I will be here in the morning. Fingers crossed.
Join me as I continue my visit to Hedingham Castle and step out of the medieval castle into the 18th century splendor of the mansion house.
This ends with Edward de Vere, the 17th Earl of Oxford.
Okay.
There is this theory that he may have been one of the authors or the author of the Shakespeare plays.
Really?